Do-Young Kim stared at the massive holographic screen, his hands clenched tightly behind his back. The alien faces looking down at him showed no emotion. Their blue-tinted skin and large eyes made them look almost bored. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times, but nothing had prepared him for how small Earth's achievements would seem to these beings. Species 4873. Designation: Humans. The tallest alien spoke, its voice oddly flat. Your application for galactic recognition is not properly filed. Please resubmit in the correct format. Do-Young took a deep breath. Respected council members, we didn't know we needed to apply. We've already established colonies on Mars and unauthorized colonization. Another council member cut him off. This one had red markings around its eyes. You have broken Section 47B of the Galactic Settlement Code. All space expansion must be approved through proper channels. The Earth delegation behind Do-Young shifted uncomfortably. They had spent 6 months learning alien protocols after the Council's ships appeared near Jupiter. No one had mentioned anything about needing permission to use their own solar system. We have been watching your species, a smaller council member said. Your rapid technological growth is concerning. Most species take at least 1,000 years to achieve spaceflight after discovering electricity. You did it in less than 200. Do-Young saw an opportunity. Then you understand our potential. We could contribute greatly to the galactic community. Our scientists have already developed. The rules exist for a reason. The first alien interrupted again. Order must be maintained. Submit your application through the proper channels. You have 1 Earth year to complete the required 7,000-page documentation. Until then, all space activities must cease. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Behind Do-Young, General Park made a sound like he was choking. They had 3 new colony ships almost ready to launch. The Mars base needed regular supply runs. They couldn't just stop everything. And if we continue our operations? Do-Young asked carefully. The council members looked at each other. The one with red markings spoke. Then your species will be marked as non-compliant. The consequences would be severe. Do-Young felt a hand on his shoulder. Han Su, Earth's military advisor, stepped forward. We understand, he said smoothly. We will begin the application process immediately. The holographic screen went dark. The Earth delegation stood in silence for a moment. Then everyone started talking at once. This is ridiculous. 7,000 pages. They can't stop us from going to Mars. What do they mean by severe consequences? Do-Young raised his hand for silence. Let's think about this carefully. Han Su, what's your take? Han Su's face was unreadable. They're hiding something. Did you notice how they avoided mentioning other species? And that comment about our development being too fast. They're afraid of us. Jae-Yun Park, their chief engineer, spoke up from the back. The technology on their ships, it's advanced, but not impossibly so. Give us 5 years, and we could match it. We don't have 5 years, General Park growled. They've given us 1 year to basically beg for permission to exist in space. Do-Young looked at each person in the room. These were Earth's best: scientists, military leaders, diplomats. None of them had gotten to their positions by asking for permission. Han Su, he said quietly, how many other ships did our sensors detect when they arrived? Just the 3 we saw, Han Su replied. Why? Because for a civilization that claims to control the galaxy, they didn't bring much of a fleet. Do-Young turned to Jae-Yun. How long would it take to adapt your stealth technology for the colony ships? Jae-Yun's eyes widened. Then she smiled. 3 months, maybe less. General Park, if we needed to speed up the launch schedule, we could have all 3 ships ready in 2 months, the general said firmly. Do-Young nodded. Then we have work to do. The council expects us to spend the next year filling out forms. He allowed himself a small smile. Let's show them how humans really do things. As the room burst into activity, Du Young looked back at the dark holographic screen. The council thought they were dealing with just another obedient species. They were about to learn that humans had a long history of not asking for permission, especially when permission shouldn't be needed in the first place. 3 months after the council's demands, Han Su stood in a massive underground facility beneath the mountains of South Korea. Around him, hundreds of engineers and workers moved with purpose. The space was filled with the sounds of welding, machinery, and determination. Status report. He called out to Jae-yun Park, who was climbing down from the massive ship taking shape before them. Jae-yun wiped grease from her hands. The stealth systems are working better than expected. We've managed to hide a test ship from even our most advanced sensors. If we can't detect it, the council won't either. Han Su nodded, allowing himself a small smile. What had started as one hidden facility had grown into a global network of secret shipyards. While the world's governments publicly worked on the council's massive application, underground, humanity prepared for something entirely different. "Show me the new data," he said, following Jae-yun to her workstation. Screens lit up with technical readings and charts. "We found something interesting when we analyzed the council's scan patterns," Jae-yun explained. "They're not just looking for ships. They're searching for specific energy signatures." She pulled up a new image. "Energy signatures that match these." Han Su leaned closer. "These readings, they're from other planets." "Yes, and here's the thing. They're all marked as non-compliant in the council's database. But watch this." Jae-yun typed rapidly, and new data appeared. "These are supposedly empty sectors of space, but when we look carefully," Han Su's eyes widened. "Hidden civilizations, just like we're about to become." Exactly. The council isn't just regulating space travel. They're hiding entire species that don't follow their rules. A voice came from behind them. "Then we need to find these species." They turned to see Du Young entering the facility. He looked tired but determined. "The council just rejected our first application draft, said our paper quality wasn't up to standard." He shook his head. "But I bring good news too. The first colony ship is ready." Han Su straightened. This was what they had been working toward. "How soon can we launch?" "Tonight," Du Young replied. The council's patrol schedule shows a 6-hour gap in their coverage. "Captain Taeho and his crew are ready." Jae-yun spoke up. "I've installed a new communication system on the ship. It uses quantum entanglement, completely undetectable. We'll be able to stay in contact even if they're light years away." Han Su walked to a large window overlooking the ship bay. The vessel below was a masterpiece of human engineering and defiance. Its sleek shape was designed to minimize any trace of its existence. The stealth systems Jae-yun had developed would hide it from the council's sensors, and its cargo holds were filled with everything needed to establish humanity's first truly independent colony. "What about the other hidden species?" Jae-yun asked. "Should we try to contact them?" "Not yet," Han Su replied. "First, we prove this works. Then," he smiled, "then we show others it's possible to break free." Do Young joined them at the window. "The council thinks we're busy writing reports and filling out forms." Their last inspection team seemed almost proud of how cooperative we were being. "Little do they know," Jae-yun grinned. A loud alarm sounded, not one of warning, but of progress. The ship's main engines were starting their warm-up sequence. Around them, the facility burst into even more activity as launch preparations began. Han Su watched as crew members began boarding the ship. Each one had volunteered, knowing they might never see Earth again if things went wrong. But that was humanity's strength, the willingness to risk everything for freedom. "Status update from Surface Control," an aide reported. "Council ships are right on schedule, moving away from our sector." "Good," Han Su said. He turned to Du Young. "Ready to make history?" Do Young's response was interrupted by a message from Jae-yun's computer. Her face went pale as she read it. "What is it?" Han Su asked. I just decoded more of the Council's data, she said quietly. Those hidden civilizations we detected, they're not just hiding. They're imprisoned. The Council is systematically suppressing any species that shows too much independence. The three looked at each other, then back at the ship. What had started as a mission of defiance had just become something much bigger. They weren't just fighting for humanity's freedom anymore. They were lighting a spark that could free the galaxy. Do-Young Kim stared at the massive holographic screen, his hands clenched tightly behind his back. The alien faces looking down at him showed no emotion. Their blue-tinted skin and large eyes made them look almost bored. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times, but nothing had prepared him for how small Earth's achievements would seem to these beings. Species 4873, designation: humans. The tallest alien spoke, its voice oddly flat. Your application for galactic recognition is not properly filed. Please resubmit in the correct format. Do-Young took a deep breath. Respected council members, we didn't know we needed to apply. We've already established colonies on Mars and unauthorized colonization. Another council member cut him off. This one had red markings around its eyes. You have broken Section 47B of the Galactic Settlement Code. All space expansion must be approved through proper channels. The Earth delegation behind Do-Young shifted uncomfortably. They had spent 6 months learning alien protocols after the Council's ships appeared near Jupiter. No one had mentioned anything about needing permission to use their own solar system. We have been watching your species, a smaller council member said. Your rapid technological growth is concerning. Most species take at least 1,000 years to achieve spaceflight after discovering electricity. You did it in less than 200. Do-Young saw an opportunity. Then you understand our potential. We could contribute greatly to the galactic community. Our scientists have already developed. The rules exist for a reason. The first alien interrupted again. Order must be maintained. Submit your application through the proper channels. You have 1 Earth year to complete the required 7,000-page documentation. Until then, all space activities must cease. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Behind Do-Young, General Park made a sound like he was choking. They had 3 new colony ships almost ready to launch. The Mars base needed regular supply runs. They couldn't just stop everything. And if we continue our operations? Do-Young asked carefully. The council members looked at each other. The one with red markings spoke. Then your species will be marked as non-compliant. The consequences would be severe. Do-Young felt a hand on his shoulder. Han Su, Earth's military advisor, stepped forward. We understand, he said smoothly. We will begin the application process immediately. The holographic screen went dark. The Earth delegation stood in silence for a moment. Then everyone started talking at once. This is ridiculous. 7,000 pages. They can't stop us from going to Mars. What do they mean by severe consequences? Do-Young raised his hand for silence. Let's think about this carefully. Han Su, what's your take? Han Su's face was unreadable. They're hiding something. Did you notice how they avoided mentioning other species? And that comment about our development being too fast. They're afraid of us. Jae-Yun Park, their chief engineer, spoke up from the back. The technology on their ships, it's advanced, but not impossibly so. Give us 5 years, and we could match it. We don't have 5 years, General Park growled. They've given us 1 year to basically beg for permission to exist in space. Do-Young looked at each person in the room. These were Earth's best: scientists, military leaders, diplomats. None of them had gotten to their positions by asking for permission. Han Su, he said quietly, how many other ships did our sensors detect when they arrived? Just the 3 we saw, Han Su replied. Why? Because for a civilization that claims to control the galaxy, they didn't bring much of a fleet. Do-Young turned to Jae-Yun. How long would it take to adapt your stealth technology for the colony ships? Jai-Yun's eyes widened. Then she smiled. 3 months, maybe less. General Park, if we needed to speed up the launch schedule, we could have all 3 ships ready in 2 months, the general said firmly. Du Young nodded. Then we have work to do. The council expects us to spend the next year filling out forms. He allowed himself a small smile. Let's show them how humans really do things. As the room burst into activity, Du Young looked back at the dark holographic screen. The council thought they were dealing with just another obedient species. They were about to learn that humans had a long history of not asking for permission, especially when permission shouldn't be needed in the first place. Captain Taho Lee stood on the bridge of the colony ship Hope, watching Earth grow smaller on the main screen. His heart beat faster as they passed Mars, then Jupiter. Every moment he expected alarms to sound, warning of council ships approaching. But Jai-Yun's stealth technology worked perfectly. They were invisible. Status report. He called out to his crew. All systems normal, his second-in-command replied. Stealth field holding steady at 100%. No sign of council activity. Tai-Ho allowed himself to relax slightly. The Hope carried 2,000 colonists in cryo-sleep, along with everything needed to build a new home on a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri. They had chosen the location carefully, close enough to reach quickly, but in a direction the council rarely patrolled. His communication screen lit up with a quantum message from Earth. Jai-Yun's face appeared, looking excited. You're doing it, she said. The council's patrol ships just passed through your sector. They didn't notice anything. How are things back home? Tai-Ho asked. Better than expected. Du Young has the council completely fooled. They're actually helping him revise the application now. She laughed. Meanwhile, we've started construction on 3 more ships. Tai-Ho nodded. The plan was working. While Earth kept the council busy with paperwork, humanity would quietly spread to the stars. No permission needed. Captain, his sensor officer called out. I'm picking up something strange. Well, you should see this. Tai-Ho moved to the sensor station. The screen showed an unusual energy signature coming from a nearby star system, one that wasn't supposed to have any planets. Jai-Yun, are you seeing this? He asked. Yes, she replied. Those readings, they match the hidden civilizations we detected. Someone's out there, using stealth technology similar to ours. Tai-Ho made a quick decision. Plot a course for that signal. We'll take a look. Captain, his navigation officer said, that will add 3 days to our journey. We're already breaking every rule in the council's book, Tai-Ho replied. What's one more? As they approached the source of the signal, they found something amazing. Hidden behind a cloud of stellar dust was a small planet, and on that planet was a colony of aliens who looked nothing like the council members. We're being hailed, the communications officer reported. They're using basic radio waves. Put them through, Tai-Ho ordered. The alien that appeared on screen had green skin and 4 eyes, but its expression of surprise was very human-like. It spoke in a series of clicks that the ship's computer quickly translated. You're not council ships, the alien said. How did you find us? We're humans, from Earth, Tai-Ho explained. We're also hiding from the council. The alien's eyes widened. The new species, the one they're making fill out the recognition forms. That's us, though we've decided not to wait for their permission. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. We did the same, centuries ago, but we could never develop our technology further. The council's patrols keep us trapped in this system. Tai-Ho looked at Jai-Yun's face on the other screen. She nodded excitedly. Maybe we can help each other, Tai-Ho suggested. We have stealth technology that works against council sensors, and we're establishing a new colony, far from their patrols. You would share your technology. The alien seemed shocked. The council says sharing technology is forbidden without proper documentation. The council says a lot of things, Tai-Ho smiled. We humans don't always listen. As they began sharing information with their new allies, Taiho sent another message to Earth. They had just discovered something important. Humanity wasn't alone in its desire for freedom. All across the galaxy, there were others who dreamed of breaking free from the Council's rules. The Hope's mission had changed. They would still build their colony, but now they had a bigger purpose. They would show others that it was possible to defy the Council and win. The spark of rebellion was about to become a flame. Minna Kang sat in her underground lab, surrounded by screens showing messages from across the stars. 6 months had passed since the Hope made first contact with the hidden aliens. Now her communication center buzzed with activity day and night. Another message from the Proxima colony. She announced to Du Young, who stood nearby. 3 more species have reached out to Captain Tao. They all want our help. Du Young leaned over her shoulder to read the message. How many does that make now? 15, Minna replied. All of them trapped by Council rules. Some have been hiding for thousands of years. The door opened, and Han Su walked in with Jai Yun. They had just returned from a meeting with Earth's leaders. Good news, Han Su said. The 2nd and 3rd colony ships are ready. The Council still thinks we're working on Section 342 of their application. Jai Yun laughed. They sent us a letter yesterday praising our attention to proper paper formatting. Minna turned back to her screens. A new message was coming in, this one from a species that called themselves the Bright Ones. Their planet was rich in rare metals that the Council wanted, so they had been forced to pretend they were still primitive. Look at this, she said, pointing to the message. The Bright Ones have been secretly developing quantum computers. They're even more advanced than ours in some ways. Can we set up a secure link with them? Du Young asked. Minna nodded. Already done. They're eager to trade knowledge. It seems every species the Council tried to suppress kept developing in secret. They just couldn't share their advances with anyone else. Until now, Jai Yun added with a smile. A loud beep came from one of the screens. Minna's fingers flew over the controls. Emergency message from the Hope. They found something big. Captain Taho's face appeared on the main screen. He looked excited but worried. You need to see this, he said, sending a data file. We found Council prison camps. Actual camps where they're holding species that refuse to follow their rules. The room went quiet as they looked at the images. Hidden on distant moons and asteroids were facilities holding thousands of aliens. Their crime? Exploring space without filling out the proper forms. This changes everything, Han Su said quietly. We're not just fighting bureaucracy. We're fighting actual oppression. Minna opened another screen, showing a map of all the hidden species they had contacted. Look at this pattern, she said. The Council keeps everyone separated. No species is allowed to know about any other that resists them. But now they're all talking to each other, Du Young realized. Through us. Jai Yun, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. I've been working on something with the Bright Ones, a way to break the Council's communication control. She brought up technical diagrams on another screen. We can use their quantum computer designs with our stealth technology. Create a network that the Council can't detect or shut down. How long? Han Su asked. 2 weeks to build the first node. Once it's working, every hidden species can copy it. Minna felt excitement build as she understood what this meant. We can connect everyone. Share technology, coordinate actions. Plan a revolution, Han Su finished. New messages kept appearing on Minna's screens. More species were reaching out every day, passing along the word that humans were helping others break free. The Council's perfect system of control was starting to crack. They never expected this, Du Young said, watching the messages flow. They thought their rules would keep everyone weak and separated. Instead they gave us all something in common, Minna finished. Everyone they tried to control is now working together. She sent a message back to the Hope, then began contacting all their hidden allies. It was time to build something the Council had never imagined. a network of free species, sharing knowledge and helping each other grow. The Council's greatest fear was about to come true. They had tried to keep everyone apart, but instead, they had created the perfect reason for them all to unite. The Council chamber erupted in chaos as emergency alerts flashed across every screen. The head counselor, his blue skin now pale with stress, stared at the reports in disbelief. "Impossible," he shouted. "How can there be 50 new unauthorized colonies appearing at once?" Another counselor, the one with red markings, rushed in with more bad news. "The prison camps in sectors 7 and 9. They're empty. All the prisoners have vanished." In his private office on Earth, Du Young watched the Council's panic through a secret feed. Next to him, Han Su was coordinating the largest space operation in human history. Thanks to Minna's communication network, every hidden species had picked the same moment to act. "Status report," Han Su called out. Minna's voice came through the quantum link. "The Bright Ones have freed 3 prison camps. The Hope has led 12 ships to new colony sites. No casualties. The Council's patrols are too confused to respond." "What about the other species?" Du Young asked. "All moving according to plan. Jia Yun's stealth technology is working perfectly. The Council can't track any of the ships." On the Council feed, another alert sounded. A counselor with green stripes pointed at a new report. "We're getting unauthorized transmissions everywhere. These species, they're all talking to each other." The head counselor slammed his fist down. "This is that new species doing. The humans. They're the only ones who could have organized this. Send the fleet to Earth immediately." Han Su smiled. "Right on schedule." He pressed a button on his console. "All teams, execute Phase 2. Across the galaxy, thousands of ships suddenly appeared on the Council's sensors. They had been there all along, hiding with human stealth technology. Now they showed themselves on purpose. The Council's fleet commanders reported in panic. "Unknown ships in every sector. We're completely outnumbered. They're using technology we've never seen." Du Young watched as the head counselor's face turned from blue to almost white. "How?" the counselor whispered. "How did they do this? Their application wasn't even properly formatted." In orbit around Earth, the Council's ships arrived to find a surprise. Instead of one primitive planet, they faced a combined fleet of 20 different species. Leading them was the Hope, now upgraded with technology from 5 different civilizations. Captain Tahoe's voice broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention Council ships. We suggest you power down your weapons. You're outnumbered 100 to 1. Han Su got another report from Minna. "The prison camp liberations are complete. All captured species have been freed. The Bright Ones are shutting down the Council's communication systems. They can't call for help." On the Council feed, the chamber had fallen silent. The head counselor stared at reports showing thousands of ships appearing everywhere, prison camps emptying, and hidden colonies revealing themselves. Their perfect system of control was falling apart in just one day. "Perhaps," Du Young said into the feed, making the Council jump as his face appeared on their screen. "You should have spent less time worrying about paper quality and more time treating other species with respect." "You," the head counselor sputtered. "This is a violation of every regulation." "No," Du Young replied calmly. "This is what happens when you try to cage too many beings who deserve to be free. Humans don't ask for permission to help others. We just do what's right." Han Su got a final report from the field. Every Council patrol had been surrounded. Every prison was empty. Every hidden species was finally showing itself. The Council's power was broken. "Send the final message," Du Young told Minna. Across the galaxy, on every planet, moon, and space station, the same words appeared. "The rules have changed. Freedom doesn't need permission." The head counselor could only watch as thousands of years of control disappeared in a single day. They had tried to force humanity to follow their rules. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy how to break them. Not all Council forces gave up easily. A week after the Great Revelation, Captain Tahoe stood on the bridge of the Hope, now leading a fleet of 500 ships from 20 different species. They faced the last and largest group of Council loyalists who had gathered near the galactic core. "They're asking us to surrender," Tahoe's communication officer reported. "They say they'll destroy any ship that doesn't have proper registration." Tahoe smiled. "Tell them we lost our registration forms. Must have dropped them somewhere between freeing the prison camps and shutting down their control centers." Han Su's face appeared on the main screen. He was coordinating the operation from a command center built by the Bright Ones. "All fleet groups report ready, Captain. The Council ships don't know that 3 more fleets are behind them, using our stealth technology." The Council commander's voice boomed across all channels. "This is your final warning. Return to your designated sectors and submit the required applications for space travel." "You still don't understand, do you?" Tahoe replied. "We're not asking for permission anymore." He gave the signal. Suddenly, the Council fleet found itself surrounded as hundreds of ships appeared from stealth mode. Every species the Council had tried to control was now there, using technology they had been forbidden to develop. "All ships, attack pattern freedom," Tahoe ordered. "Remember, disable, don't destroy." We're better than they were. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Ships using combined technology from multiple species easily overwhelmed the Council's forces. The Bright Ones used their quantum computers to hack and shut down Council weapons. Another species, known for their artistic light shows, used their skills to create dazzling distractions. "Council ships are powering down their weapons," Han Su reported. "Their crews are celebrating. They're letting their prisoners take control." Through the quantum network, Minna's voice came through. "The same thing is happening everywhere. Most Council forces don't want to fight. They were just following orders because they were afraid." Tahoe watched as Council ship after Council ship surrendered. Many of their crew members had never agreed with the old rules, but had been too scared to speak up. Now they joined the revolution, sharing their own stories of how the Council had forced them to hurt others. Jai Yun's voice joined the network. "Captain, you need to see this. The Council's main database. We found proof that they've been doing this for over 10,000 years. They didn't create their rules to keep order. They did it because they were afraid of what would happen if species worked together." The last Council admiral finally called Tahoe directly. On the screen, he looked tired and old. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you unite so many species so quickly?" "We didn't unite them," Tahoe answered. "You did that when you tried to keep them apart. We just showed them they weren't alone." One by one, the remaining Council ships powered down their weapons. The revolution that had started with one human colony ship refusing to ask permission had grown into a galaxy-wide movement for freedom. "All fleet commanders report victory," Han Su announced. "No Council forces remain active in any sector." Through the quantum network, Tahoe could hear celebrations breaking out on thousands of worlds. Species that had been kept apart for centuries were finally meeting, sharing their cultures, their technologies, their dreams. "Message from Earth," his communication officer called out. "Du Young wants to speak to everyone." Du Young's face appeared on screens across the fleet. "The fighting is over," he said simply. "Now the real work begins. We have a galaxy to rebuild. Together this time." Tahoe looked out at the stars. The Council had spent thousands of years trying to control everyone through rules and regulations, but they had forgotten something important. When you tell people they need permission to be free, you're just giving them a reason to prove you wrong. 1 year after the Council's fall, Earth had changed. The once secret underground facilities were now open universities, where species from across the galaxy came to learn and share knowledge. Today, Du Young walked through one of these centers with a group of alien representatives. "And this is where we built our first stealth ship," he explained, showing them the huge chamber where the Hope had been born. "Now it's a place where anyone can learn to build whatever they dream of." Jai Yun was teaching a class nearby. showing beings of all shapes and sizes how to combine different technologies. On one table, a creature made of pure light worked with a rock-like alien to create something new. They didn't need permission to experiment anymore. Message from the Proxima colony. Minna called out from her new communication center. They're hosting the first interspecies art festival next month. 300 different civilizations want to participate. The quantum network that had once been their secret weapon now connected the galaxy in friendship. Where the Council had forced everyone to communicate through official channels, now ideas and cultures flowed freely between worlds. Han Su entered the room with Captain Tao, who had just returned from a long exploration mission. The Hope, once a hidden colony ship, now led peaceful expeditions to find more isolated species who might need friends. "You won't believe what we found," Taiho said excitedly. A whole cluster of worlds the Council had marked as too primitive for contact. Their technology is amazing. They figured out faster than light travel using music. "Have you invited them to join the Alliance?" Du Young asked. The Alliance was their answer to the Council's bureaucracy. Instead of rules and permissions, it was built on 3 simple ideas: help each other, share knowledge, and respect freedom. Any species could join just by agreeing to these principles. "They're sending representatives next week," Taiho replied. "They want to share their musical space drive with everyone." Around them, the facility buzzed with activity. Where once they had hidden in fear of Council patrols, now ships from across the galaxy landed openly on the surface. Earth had become a symbol of freedom for everyone. "It's hard to believe it all started with us refusing to fill out forms," Jiayun said, joining them after her class. "The Council's biggest mistake was thinking they could control progress with paperwork," Han Su added. "They spent so much time making rules, they forgot why rules exist. To help people, not control them." Minna's console lit up with new messages. The Bright Ones had made another breakthrough in quantum physics. 3 other species wanted to help develop it further. A group of artistic aliens needed engineers to help build a sun-sized sculpture. Everyone was creating, exploring, and growing together. "Look at this," Du Young said, showing them a report. "Remember how the Council said we developed too fast? That we went from electricity to spaceflight too quickly." He smiled. "The galaxy's rate of progress has increased 1,000 times since we all started working together." Through the facility's huge windows, they could see ships of all shapes and sizes coming and going. Some were ancient designs now fitted with new technology. Others were completely new, built by species working together. None of them needed permission to fly. "The Council was right about one thing," Taiho said. "They said humans were dangerous because we didn't follow rules." He looked at all the beings working together, sharing ideas, building dreams. "We were dangerous to anyone who thought they could cage the spirit of exploration." Do Young watched as a group of young aliens played with human children in the facility's garden. They were growing up in a galaxy where permission wasn't needed to make friends, share ideas, or chase dreams. "We didn't just break the Council's rules," he said quietly. "We proved that the best rules aren't rules at all. They're agreements between friends to help each other grow." Above them, the stars sparkled with possibility. The galaxy was free, and every day brought new discoveries, new friendships, and new dreams. All because humans had decided that some things were too important to wait for permission.